Hey. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to tonight's show. I like to title this one "Crossing the Finish Line." It's a place that we all hope to get to one day. That's what we're working towards, and to bring some understanding and some clarity to the process of signing out. Because when I'm in the swing rooms and different work locations, I hear a lot of questions and a lot of misunderstandings of what the process of retirement is. So to help get a better explanation of that, I have Sean Battaglia here on the show. Sean Battaglia is the Division I Vice Chairman of MAPSTOA and also the Vice Chairman at Michael J. Quill Depot. So welcome Sean Battaglia to the show. Also,
what's going on, Q? How you feeling?
What's going on? How's everything? How's your New Year?
John, how you guys doing?
Right now,
yes, sir.
Right. Also, we have James Cornick. He's a retired bus operator out of Manhattanville Depot. James, how long have you been retired now?
Going on 3 years now.
Going on 3 years and loving it.
James, make sure you tell them what depot you retired out of, though.
Yeah, I retired out of Quill.
There you go.
But he's an MTV original. I keep telling you.
I'm an MTV original. Born and bred. Yeah.
Quill.
Yeah, but retirement, I highly recommend it.
Right.
Highly recommend it.
And John is a recent retiree out of
Quill.
Is also right.
Yes.
How does it feel to be retired now?
Oh no, I'm still trying to get used to it. I mean, I've been retired now just 6 months, and it's I'm still getting used to it, and but I'm enjoying it. Trust me, I'm enjoying it.
All right, cool. That I can tell you one thing: that transit lifestyle, when you start at the job, is hard to adapt to. So I could just imagine after 25 years of service, it's hard to adjust to getting out of it. And I use the phrase 25 years of service to lead into my first question, because I know our retirement plan is 25-55, meaning 25 years of service, 55 years of age. But what is the difference, right, between having 25 years of service, Sean, and 25 years on the job? Because just having 25 years on the job doesn't mean you have 25 years of service.
Yeah, correct. So, you need 25 years of actually completed accredited service to be eligible to retire at full pension benefit. Now, what that means, if to fulfill the 25-55 obligation, you have to have 25 years of full completed service. If you want to retire between the ages of 55 and right before 62. You need that 25 years of service.
Okay, so how
you have 25 years on the job and you have 2 years of bad time, you're gonna have to make up those 2 years of time to make sure you have 25 complete years.
And what is bad time?
All right, so bad time is any day that's basically unpaid. If you were ever sick unpaid, if you were ever suspended, if you were ever took a leave of absence, if you quit and came back, anything that you was not paid for.
So what you're saying is basically someone could have 25 years on the job, right? But then when they go to retire, they had, let's say, a UA that wasn't funded with a vacation day.
Hold on. I'm glad you just said that.
Right.
Because that's a big misconception that a lot of people have.
Okay.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was going to say that just so everybody knows. And everyone, and I do retirements, will tell me, "Oh, Sean, I ain't got no bad time. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I hear about the old 100th Street days and the stories of everything that they used to tell me. But if you ever go UA, and I know a lot of guys go UA, that their car broke down, if they go, if that sick child, and they come in and they bring in paperwork, and they go see the boss with their union rep, if they use the term that you just used, will fund it with an AVA, guess what? That's a bad day. That is not a good day. Because all a funding means is they cashed you out a day, so your paycheck was not short.
Right.
So if I went UA today and I saw the boss tomorrow, and he said, "Well, you know what? I'll take it as proof submitted, and I'm gonna fund you an AVA," your UA is still on your record. It's still a bad day. All it is basically the general cashing you out of vacation day, cashing you out OTO. All it is the cash out. Funding does not constitute as a good day, just so we're clear on that. Because a lot of guys don't understand that or don't know that. If the GS actually goes into the UTS and changes the absence from a UA or an AWOL to a vacation day to an AVA, that's a good day. If they fund it, no good.
Okay, so if you go UA and then they change UA to a vacation or AVA day, then it's not bad time. But
Correct.
if they,
as long as it's in the system,
so you're not short on your check, but the UA remains on your record, then it's still a bad day. So basically, any day that you were supposed to work that you didn't work and not get paid for is a bad day. So,
I know you used to hear stories. A lot of guys used to go, they didn't show up back in, I guess, before you had the 12 sick days. People wouldn't show up on a Monday because they didn't discipline. And what they do used to make it up on a Saturday, right?
Right.
If they didn't change that in the computer to a change of day and pay you straight time, guess what? That don't count either because that paid you overtime. That's not a straight time. That will not count towards that. So it's very, very technical on how things are coded in terms of making something a good day or a bad day, which no fault to nobody, but we got to make sure that we're keeping track of this stuff because that could affect somebody, like you said, when they go to retire. Oh, I got 25 years, no bad time. And then they turn around and they got 50, 60, 70, 80 bad days. Like, I didn't miss no work. Like, are you sure about that?
So
it catches up quick.
Dave Milligan asks a question. He says, what about buying back time?
You could only buy military time or comp time. If you're on comp, because comp is good, they're supposed to be taking pension contributions.
Right.
So I recommend, highly, highly recommend anybody who's on comp, the day you come off a comp and you're back to work, you need to call the BSC and you need to see if you have a pension deficit, a pension contribution deficit. What that means is if you were on comp for 8-9 months, right? But you didn't get differential, let's just say, and you weren't getting your pension dues taken out of that 9 months is going to show up as bad time, which is technically good time.
Right.
So what you're supposed to do is just call up, make sure all your contributions are up to date and paid, and that comp time is good time. So the only days that you could buy back are comp, and if you have eligible military time, you cannot buy back bad time. You have to make bad time up.
Can that buyback be bought in one lump sum or over time?
For what time are we talking about? If you call up BSC, let's say for a pension deficit, they have to take the money in 30 days. So even if you're just inquiring and you're like, listen, I just came off a comp. Once you open up that, there is no, I'm not doing it. You have 30 days. If you do not pay it in 30 days, then they automatically start taking out your check as a payment plan. But once you actually make the inquiry, it automatically files through. They can't open it and see that you had a deficit and not do it. So you have 30 days to pay it, or it'll start a payment plan to pay it up.
Okay, cool. So you pretty much, when you make that phone call, you opened up Pandora's box. And
you better do it because you're paying 5% compound interest for every day that you're not doing it. So you better do it. Like I said, if you come back from comp, your first phone call should be to BSC to make sure your pension contributions for your comp time was paid for.
All right. So how does the process of actually retiring start? Like when I was doing the job, I was naive. I thought when you retire, you just go in the back, talk to the general, whoever, hey, I'm retired, and you just walk out the door. But
it ain't that simple.
Get an appointment, go sign out, stuff like that. So how does it work?
Well, being that we're in the COVID era is a little bit more difficult, a little different because now they're really only trying to get people within 90 days of going out. If you were in years past, if you were looking to go out like in a year from now, we would start your paperwork, like meaning that we'd set you up to get an estimate. We'd get your service summary sent out to you. We'd get your numbers sent out to you. Now they only want to do people 90 days in advance because so many people are leaving so fast because of COVID.
Right.
But what we're telling everybody to do now is when you know you're about 3 to 4 or 5 months out of retirement, let us know. And what we're going to do is we're going to set you up. We're going to get you your estimate of what your pension is going to be, and we're going to get you your yearly service summary, which will tell you whatever year you started. If you started in 95, 96, 97, it'll break down every single year to the current year we're in, which is 2021, and it'll break down how much bad time you have per year, and it'll show you how much credit time you have, so you know when you're eligible to go out, you have all your time. And if you have any bad time at that point, you could try to go over if you have bad time.
All right, cool. So I call you, hey Sean, I want to retire. You call the BSC. I call the BSC, or would you call the BSC?
Well, okay. So they changed this also. It used to be I would personally do it for you. I would used to call BSC, but I'm sorry, before it's BSC, I used to be the one, or your union rep would be the one to call to Broadway from you. We would talk to the pension department, 10th floor. Tabitha and Dwayne, shout out to my two peoples. They always take care of me, and Shanna Ricketts at 2 Broadway. They always be taking care of me for the sign outs. But we used to call them up and set up the estimates for them. Now, once they switched over to BSC, they want everybody to go through BSC and open up a ticket. So now what you're going to do is you would call BSC, 646, call them up. And what you would do is you would tell me you want to retire, and you would just open up a ticket and they would get back to you. And that number, everyone needs to know, is 646-376-0123.
For the BSC. So now here's something that I've heard a lot of people going to retire, they fail to do correctly. When you go down to retire to sign out, what documents do you have to have?
Okay, so if you're signing out for yourself and you're taking a max option means you're not leaving a pension to nobody. You're just straight up taking the most amount of money. The only thing you're going to need is either a valid U.S. passport or an original birth certificate with the seal on it. It cannot be a photocopy. It has to be all original documents. If you are taking an option for your spouse, you then have to have their, either birth certificate and or passport, same thing, and you have to have a copy of an original marriage certificate.
Right. So you mean to tell me, after working 25 years on the job, and they pretty much know who I am, they've been sending me my money all this time, that I have to show further proof of who I am when I go to retire?
And I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not going to mention names, but we had one guy who tried to retire, and his retirement was held up about 7 or 8 months, maybe it dropped longer, because he couldn't get those original copies.
Wow.
Yeah, he was having an issue, and his health wasn't the greatest, so I'm not going to say who he is, but he had an issue where he couldn't produce those original documents, and he had to prolong his retirement until he got them.
Wow. So you mentioned something about options, the max, and then option for a spouse. Like, how many different options are there when
there's technically, let me count it right, there should be 7. You have the max. There's technically 5 options, but 5 has 5A, and then you have the max. So basically what you have is you have the maximum option, which means I'll make up ballpark numbers. If your pension is $5,000 a month, your maximum amount is $5,000 a month. When you pass away, when you unfortunately deceased, your pension stops.
So wait, if a retiree takes a max option, when he passes away, the payments cease. So basically it's an annuity.
Correct.
Right?
Once you pass away, the pension plan is done. Not the death benefit, only the pension plan is done.
Right.
Then you have option number 1, which is 100% survivor, which means, let's say, let's use that same $5,000 a month. Let's say you're taking 100% option, which means when you pass away, you're leaving your spouse 100% of that pension. That's what it'll be now. It's expensive, and it goes by the age gap between you and your spouse. The bigger the gap, the bigger the payment. So let's just say, for argument's sake, it's $800 a month payment. Your payment now would go from $5,000 a month to $4,200 a month. And when you pass away, your spouse would get that same $4,200 a month until the day she passes away. You got that?
Okay. Right.
Then you also have that same option as a 50% survivor, which means it's cost a little bit less. I use ballpark numbers. Remember, I said 5,000 and then 800. If you get the 50%, that might only be about 400. So instead of being the original 5,000, which was the max, it might be 4,600. And if you pass away, your wife would get half of that, which would be the 2,300. You got that?
Right.
The next option is called the 10-year certain, which is option number 3, and option number 4 is called the 5-year certain. What those certains mean is you're guaranteed to get your pension for at least 10 years or 5 years, and those are a lot cheaper. Instead of being $400 a month that they might charge you, it might be $250 or $200. But here's the thing: let's say I lived for 9 years and I took a 10-year certain. My wife is only going to collect that for 1 more year, because you're only guaranteed 10 years certain pay from the day you retire, and or 5-year certain. the final option, which this is what I'm going to recommend to every single buddy. If you don't take the max, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, so nobody hold true to this. This is just me shooting the breeze with you guys.
Right.
If you're not taking the max, the only options that people should be looking at is 5 or 5A. Now, remember I said option number 1 was the 100%.
Right.
And the option number 2 was the 50%.
Right.
Let's say you take those options and you leave your wife that $4,200. In the event your wife passes away, your pension does not go back up to the $5,000. You got that?
Right. I see what you're saying.
Option 5, though, is called the 100% pop-up. What that means is it's a little bit more than option 1. So let's say we said it was 800. It might cost 900. So now your pension, instead of being 5,000, is 4,100. If I pass away, my wife is getting 4,100 a month till the day she dies. However, in the event my wife passes away before me, I get popped back up to my original
5,000.
It's a little bit more, but it's insurance for you. If you're going to take out insurance for your spouse, you take out insurance for yourself. That's just the way it goes. And then option 5A is the 50% pop-up. Again, if you're going to leave and take an option, 100% or the 50%, this is just me shooting the breeze. My recommendation would be take the pop-up because you're protecting your spouse in the event you pass away, and you're protecting the event that your spouse passes away because it goes back up to your max.
All right, cool. So that would be for, okay, so you said your spouse. What about, let's say someone's just about to retire that isn't married and they want to designate a child.
A significant other?
Yeah.
Again,
a significant other or a child, can they be the beneficiary?
But remember what I just told you. It goes by the age gap.
Age gap, right.
So if you leave it to your child, you're 5,000, they could charge you 3, 4, 5,000 because it's all based on the life expectancy of the last person on your retirement plan. Oh, okay. So if you're, let's say, retiring at 55 and you got a 10-year-old kid and you say, you know what, I'm going to leave that kid, the child's expectancy of life is going to be 45 years more than yours. You might not get no pension out of that because, but my point is, it goes by the life expectancy. That's how they come up with the calculation of how much it is. So if your wife or whoever you're leaving it to is dramatically younger than you, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg that you might as well just get yourself an outside insurance policy, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow, cool. So here's another question. Like I said, the pension is 25-55 and you 50% of your average salary. What is the average? Is it the best 3 years? Is it the last 3 years?
Well, hold on. I think you kind of mixed up two things. The average is going to be a 5-year span of what your pensionable income is.
Right.
Even if, let's say, for argument's sake, you made $100,000. It might not be $100,000 pensionable. If you cashed out vacation or had any kind of cash outs, and that people don't realize that that's not pensionable. If you look on your W-2, it'll show you New York State amount that you made for the year, whatever, and then it'll show you pensionable amount. Yeah. So the way your average works now is they're going to calculate every 5 years of your career. Okay. So I know a lot of people say, oh, it's going to be my last 5 or whatever. It's not necessarily your last 5. It's the greatest 5-year span of your career. So to put it down in layman's terms, they're going to calculate years 1 through 5, 2 through 6, 3 through 7, 4 through 8, 5 through 9, 6 through 10, 7 through 11, all the way on to however many years you have. Whichever 5-year block tallied the total highest amount, that's the 5-year that they use for the average. Now, the average gets a little bit trickier because in that 5-year span, your years cannot be within 10% of the previous year. So if you're going to go hard, you go hard for 5 years. Because if you went, and let's say for your 5 years, you did 100,000, then 130, then you did 100, then you did 130, and then you did 100. You might think, oh, well, I got 3 years at 100 and 2 years at 130. They'll take my 2 130s and 100. No. Right. Because that 130 is going to become a 110 because your first year of 100, you're only allowed to go 10% higher than that. So you can't go more than 110. So anything over 110 is not going to go into your average. Not pensionable. Then the next year would be, if you did 110, would be 11,000 more, would be 121, and then be more than that. So that's how they come up with what your average is. Whichever 5 years is the greatest amount. So that's why when they tell you go hard for 5 years, you really got to go. You can't go hard for 3 years and then lay up a little bit because that's going to drop you significantly on your 10% if those 5 years are the greatest highs. Because you could have run 3 years at 150, 150, 150. and then said, you know what, I'm gonna lay low my last 2 years, and 80 and 80. And if you combine those 5 years, if they're $1,000 more than your second grade's total 5 years, they're using that 5-year span. And those last 2 years are going to dramatically hurt you. So when they tell you, and any union rep will tell you, and anybody who you ask advice to, if you're going to do it and you're going to go steady, you got to be steady for 5 years. This way, you know you're within your 10% of those 5 years.
Right. So one thing I like to tell people, when they're trying to figure out what their pension average is, if you look on the top of your pay stub, it usually tells you how much of your money went towards your pension for the year, and you also have a year-to-date pensionable amount.
Correct.
And that's how you could tell, because like if your year-to-date salary was 100,000, if you look at the pensionable, it'll tell you what actually was going to be.
Because you could have cashed out vacation, you could have at the end cashed out six days like you're allowed to, So, all that stuff is just extra money, but it's not pensionable. So
right. So to be clear, like vacation days, AVAs, OTO, sick time, none of that is pensionable.
No. If you take a vacation, that's pensionable. Absolutely.
Your vacation days are pensionable.
It's only if you cash out a week. If someone cashes out 5 weeks, 5 days, because what happens is you work those 5 days.
Right.
So that's why they also tax you. Remember, before 2012, what we all used to do? We used to cash out a week. We used to claim 99, and we used to take that whole check with us, right? And I believe it was 2012 when they changed it, and they made it like a bonus check. Now we're getting taxed 53%. It's non-pensionable. So if you're just cashing out the money, you still work that week. So you still got paid that week. So that 5 weeks you're going to do as a hardship or whatever you need the money for. But if you look at your pensionable, you'll see it's not pensionable. Okay. So if you go on vacation, it is pensionable. If you cash it out, it's not.
So leading up to retirement, let's say someone's in their last 6 months to a year, what advice would you give someone that's leading up to someone like John? I believe you signed John out, right? What advice?
Me and Sal did. Sal was in there. I think I was doing a Q&A at your depot at that time.
We had to do it virtual too.
Yeah, it's now it's a little bit different. Now it's all through Zoom, but we would get everybody ready. We would make sure everyone has their paperwork ready. We make sure we have your estimates ready. We make sure everyone is good to go. You get a basic idea of what your numbers are going to be, and then we try to go from there. What we'll then do is we'll be the ones to, set up what your last day work is going to be, to when you're going to take your vacation, to when you're going to take your terminal leave, because you got to remember, some guys, depending on when you go out, you want to use your vacation. You don't want your vacation to become terminal leave. If your vacation becomes terminal leave, it only pays 8 hours. Your vacation, everyone knows, is 152nd. So a lot of guys will wait till the first week of January to go out. Why? Because they take the first 5 weeks of the year, right? And those 5 weeks are going to pay them 152nd, and then they'll get the terminal leave for January and partial of February. Now, you could leave in November or December and still get your 5 weeks for the next year, because remember, we accrue vacation a year in advance. Right. However, it would be counted as terminal leave, and your terminal leave only pays 8 hours. So you can wind up shortchanging yourself if you had a big run, like a 13-hour run, or I'm sorry, I don't even say that, because if your 152nd is worth 18, 17, 16 hours a day, and now you're doing terminal leave, it's only 8 hours. So you want as little terminal leave as possible, as much vacation as possible.
Okay. So someone, they came down, they signed out, everything was squared, they had all the documentation, paperwork. How long does it take to get your first check?
You have to have one full complete month on retirement. So we try at Quill, I'm going to speak for Quill only. When you come to us, like you said, and I'm personally going to map it out with you. I'm going to sit there with you. I'm pretty good at the calculations. We're going to figure out what your last day work is. We're going to figure out when your last day paid is. There's two different things: your last day work and your last day paid. Your last day work could be May 1st. Your last day paid may not be till June 15th or something. If you had 5 weeks vacation, then your terminal leave, then any AVAs on the back end. So your last day work and last day paid are two different things. Your retirement date is the following day after your last day paid. So if your last day paid is June 15th, your retirement date is June 16th. Your first pension check would then be August 1st, which would be all of July and the prorated of June. You got that?
Right.
So it's always one full month. So we try to make sure everyone's retirement date is as close to the end of the month as possible, so you're not waiting for your pension check for 6, 7, 8 weeks. We try to make it that you're only waiting 5 or 6 weeks as opposed to 7 or 8. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's what we try to do.
So I have a question. Danny Cruz, he says, not everyone may know what terminal leave is. Can you explain what terminal leave is, quick, fast?
I mean, the only person who's going to know what terminal leave is the people who's retiring. Terminal leave is your vacation accrued for the following year. We get vacation for the following year. That's why every general pick, we pick the next year's vacation. You're working for it in advance. So you're going to get just about 2.5 days per month worked. So if you're retiring in June, and that's your last day paid, you have 6 months worth. Let's say you retire in June of 2021.
Right.
From January 1st to the end of June, whatever your last day paid was, you accrued vacation in 2022.
Right.
That becomes your terminal leave. But that becomes only 8 hours because that's not 1/52nd.
Right. So is the process of retiring pretty much the same for someone that's retiring on disability?
No. Nope.
I mean, as far as I'm not talking about as far as the calculation thing. I'm talking about the process of service.
No, because disability is a lot different. Disability is that's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show. We'll
that's
bring
a whole
it back
other show because to be honest with you got to get approved for Social Security disability. Then you have to apply for disability retirement. A lot of people don't get approved on their first go around, and they have to go around the second time. So that's like a whole other show, disability retirement. But we're talking about full term retirement. It's like I said, you could be out of work for 2 years on comp, or you might not be medically cleared. You could be HMAC and forced to retire, and then you got retirement disability. It's totally different. So we'll just leave it at that. It's a whole nother process.
We'll go back another time.
I already took out 27 minutes of you guys' time, so I would take another 2 years.
Just to explain that. So, John, you're a recent retiree. What was the not only the process but the feeling of crossing the finish line like for you? Because lately I've seen at different depots they post pictures of the guys actually signing out, and when I see those pictures, I feel like Junior done got his NBA contract, all the years of hard work and signed off, made it to the big leagues. Now he get to live his dream and get paid for it. So how was it for you?
You know what? It's funny because I would ask guys before me that were getting ready to retire, say, "Oh, you must be excited, you're happy, you don't have to wake up early anymore," and they would always tell me, "Yeah, it sounds good, but I'm nervous." And I'm like, why would you be nervous? But as I got closer to retirement, I actually did feel that. Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to have enough money? Am I, it's just basically, am I doing the right thing?
Right.
Am I going to be okay when I'm retired? Am I going to miss it? Or, but I mean, so far it's worked out for me. I'm enjoying it. I'm working a little part-time, to keep busy. And I'm really enjoying it.
So let me ask James. I'm trying to bring Phil back. Phil was having a little technical difficulty earlier. Hopefully he got his audio straight out.
I'm good.
He's good. Okay. Well, let's welcome Phil to the show. Phil, I had the pleasure of working with Phil at MTV Depot. He's one of the greatest shippers I had. I learned a lot about not hitting poles, watching Phil drive the bus. And James, you've been retired about 3 years now. How was it for you transitioning from, the transit lifestyle into lifestyle of retirement?
Well, it wasn't hard for me because I was ready. Right. I was ready to retire. Okay. It wasn't really hard. See, I had a lot of things going on. I was retiring. I was relocating. I was in the middle of a lawsuit. There was a lot of things going on around that time. So when it was time for me to walk out the door, the day I walked out the door at Quill, I didn't even look back. I didn't even look back. So I was ready to go. I had a lot to do.
What about you, Phil?
Q, not to interrupt you guys real quick, but I was you talking about taking pictures and everything. I was looking for, because I had the picture of James Cornick when he retired. I had the picture of Maglio when he retired. And I'm going through my Facebook page, the Quill page, and we was joking around before. It's about Cornick saying that he's like MTV and everything. But James, I'm going to remind you of one thing, though, real quick. I'm going to remind you of December 3rd, 2017. Do you remember what day that was, James? December
3rd. Of 2017.
I'm going to take a shot right now at Q. Do you know what that is?
December 3rd. No, that was done to pick.
Nope. That was the day that MTV and MJQ played off in the billiards. And
MTV's Now I remember.
I'm just
remember.
Taking a quick shot at MTV right now. That MJQ.
Quill got the ass. MTV got the ass kicked.
Take a shot.
Y'all can't do that. Y'all can't do that.
You know what,
But
Sean?
you can't do that.
I'm just gonna say this, Sean. I'm just gonna say this. Challenge accepted. I'm going back to work tomorrow. I'm telling everybody you was talking
Well,
smack.
listen, in all seriousness, we were actually talking. We're gonna try to do a little off topic real quick, but when this COVID thing is over, MTV and MJQ will actually have a rematch of the Billions. But that's another story.
All right, let's get on. Let's go do a whole transit system tournament. You know, I'll put it together. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Phil, how long you been retired now, Phil?
Well, actually, I've been retired 10 years.
Wow.
And,
wow, Phil. It doesn't even seem like that long. Wow.
Yeah. And when I retired, you were talking about the process of calling BSC and all of that.
That didn't even exist.
There was a guy in the back. I forget his name. I think they made him a superintendent. Tall, older white guy. You would go to him and you would say, listen, I'm going to retire. So now he's got to go down in the basement or wherever they got this stuff and look through all the paper time cards. And they didn't have half of them. You know, they were from.
You talked about Matt Baker.
Matt Baker.
Matt Baker.
They were from 132nd Street.
Mm-hmm.
When it closed and they demolished the building, thank God they thought enough to get that stuff out of there. And it took him about 3 or 4 months to calculate the time. So, but I was listening to John talk about those feelings of the unsure feelings about, well, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm not going to be making the money I was making. I'm used to it. And Richie may rest in peace, sat down with me and he said, listen, you're not going to be Uncle Phil no more. You're a big man on campus here. Everybody, you walk in, everybody, hey, Phil. It's not going to be like that no more. That's right. That didn't bother me. I thought about it, but that didn't bother me because I liked working at the depot. I got off the road maybe 10 years before I left the job. And I was shifting and everything like that. And I, just hanging out, basically. Dodging the dispatcher, most of the time. So, they knew that if they had something tough, call Phil would do it because I was stupid like that, right? But I was very unsure about what was going on. Thank God money wasn't a problem then. It isn't now. I didn't put in all the hours I could have because I think I was just weary. Right. Just weary. From 1980 to 2010, it was like, I'm ready to go. Right. Yeah, and I like the way Sean was talking about how organized they are over there. Because I'm not saying nothing bad about anybody at MTV, but it was not like that.
It wasn't as smooth.
Well, you gotta say one thing though. Phil, it was a lot different, like you said in the past. Like,
it was a long time ago.
If you look at just the retirement process from 10 years ago now, and implementation of the BSC, and and
there wasn't none of that.
And we've done in the last 4 or 5 years, we've done a lot of more training for the retirees. And we've really got all the reps now up to date. Now MTV knows like the back of their hand. But like you said, 10 years ago, I just don't think the information that is out there now was out there then again, back at that point as easily accessible,
Yeah, I was just, I was tired, basically. I was tired of dragging myself in there every day. And it made it easier. I wasn't ill. I wasn't under any pressure other than it was just time. And that's more important than anything else with a lot of things in life, When it's time, it's time. And you got to realize that. And I know I left money on the table. I could have did a lot more overtime. I didn't check to make sure I made up every single bad day. And there was a lot of bad time. I worked a year longer than I had to. And that made up just some of it. It didn't even take care of everything because things was a little bit different back then. But
there was a time. There was a time.
I'm going to tell you something. Nothing but gratitude and I appreciate working at a place like that. It wasn't easy.
Phil.
Yeah.
In the 10 years you've been retired, James, in the 3 years you've been retired, John, in the 6 months you've been retired. How many months have that check not been there?
I'm gonna tell you something right now. I'm gonna tell you
If nothing else comes on time, that check is there.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, so I like to hear.
You know,
And you know,
not only the
you know what else I realized? You know what else I realized is that I have more money in my pocket retired
we were talking about that in the
than I had when I was working.
Yeah.
It's
Hey, John,
really
you
a
and I
funny
have
thing how that
conversation,
works
John?
out. But you just end up having more money in your pocket.
Yeah.
You're right.
You
Because
know.
I was telling John the same thing, and I tell a lot of guys when we sit down and Q is asking what's the process that we go through, and a lot of times it's a lot of guys aren't concerned about their income. And me and John had this conversation numerous times, me and a lot of retirees numerous times, and we go down, well, this is how much you're making now to work 55, 60, 65 hours a week. This is what you're going to collect. And then when Social Security collect, we're very lucky in the MTA, in transit, in MapStowey. You know why? What's the number one thing that we do not have that you look at other city agencies?
Tax.
What do we not? Well, not tax. We do not have a Social Security offset, which means when we become Social Security eligible, we are getting money on top of that. They do not reduce our pension. You look at NYCT, sanitation, when they become with their tier 3, when they become Social Security eligible and they get $2,000 a month, their pension gets reduced $2,000.
Get out of here.
We getting a bonus.
What?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
I believe
the one thing that I want to say too is about the medical benefits. Now I know people got issues with it. My wife is a very serious illness, and the prescription medication and everything else is taken care of. You know, I don't have to worry about that.
You beat it, man.
None of my money is going towards paying for these insane. They lost one of her. Just a short story. They lost one of her medications that was being mailed to us, and the bill was $17,000.
Yikes!
UPS had to pay it. I didn't have to pay it, but so it just goes to show you that. Listen,
and the only thing about the medical is that when I transitioned down here, I picked up a copay for $15.
Really?
Depends
if
on
I stayed in New York, I wouldn't have had a copay.
Correct.
Now, Delvin Jones, God bless his soul.
God bless that.
Me and Delvin lived 10 minutes from each other. And Delvin complained about that $15 copay. And because of that $15 copay, Delvin didn't go to the doctor. And because Delvin didn't go to the doctor, Delvin is no longer with us.
But wait a minute. How old was Delvin? He wasn't on Medicare?
I don't know how old Delvin was.
I don't think he was that old.
He may not have been that old.
I don't think so.
And he may not have been that old.
James, you and Phil also, you both have relocated outside of the New York City area, right?
Yeah, I'm in Texas.
All right. So was that something that you guys both planned before retiring, or after retirement? You said, I'm going to pick up and I'm going to stake my claim somewhere else.
When I retired, when I made the decision to retire, I already had it in my mind. I was relocating. I was going to go to Arizona.
Okay.
But I said, that's a dumb move. I don't know anybody in Arizona. So I came here where my family is.
Okay.
So because I came here, I picked up a $15 copay. If I moved to Florida, I wouldn't have a copay.
So just so you guys know also about relocating, just keep in mind, there are pension-friendly states. You move to a pension-friendly state, you are only paying federal. You're not paying city and or state.
Right.
And always and I know this sounds crazy about when people want to move or relocate, but you really should make sure you move into a pension-friendly state, which means
so Sean, let me ask you this, Sean. If I decided to move to a pension-friendly state after I retired, will that still apply for me also?
Of course, you're not paying the city and state no more. It's going to go by the state that you live in. The state that is charging you tax, not the pension. The state that you live in is charging you tax. If you move into a pension-friendly state, you only need to pay the federal.
Right.
Yeah. The thing with us was my wife got a promotion. We had a house out in Queens. She lived there all her life. And she came to me and she said, they're offering me a promotion. They're going to pay to move us down there the whole 9 yards. And I said, well, how much money? She told me. I said, well, let's go.
That's it. Hey, John.
That's right.
Like, and all of the people on her job are saying, well, what does Phil think you should do? She said, he's on his way down there now.
Hey, John.
So it worked out well.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
You can hear me, John?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I said I don't want this relocating getting in your head. You're staying in New Jersey with me, champ. So I don't
I
want
probably
you relocating. I hear everybody else talking about it. You ain't moving, brother.
John is Googling pension-friendly states right now.
Oh, I know. I told about, but I'm good here where I am now, man.
Hey, listen, that's my Jersey Shore buddy. He ain't moving nowhere.
I think South Carolina is a pension-friendly state. South Carolina ain't but 20 miles away from me. I can move to South Carolina. You know, I sell my house.
Hey, listen.
Or buy another house in South Carolina and rent this one out. You know.
You heard, James? If you live in the other state 51% of the time, you're good to go.
Right.
That's right.
That would be your state.
All you need is 51% of the time.
So you can get a little shack on the beach down in Myrtle Beach, and
there you go. That's right. Get me a little. Get me a double wide trailer. That's it.
So
you've been down there too long already. Double wide trailer. What the hell are you talking about?
I think some really nice double wides, bro.
I was going to say,
Texas is different. We live in about 30 miles north of Houston, in a place called the Woodlands, and it's fabulous here. We love it. And she's actually retired from her job now, so we're thinking about actually buying a house.
Okay.
And the prices are right. They're going up. Oddly enough, in the middle of a pandemic, the housing prices are going up.
You know why they're going up? Because somebody's house freaking dirt cheap right now. When the interest rates are dirt cheap, the house will go higher. Because
right now is a good time to buy. Yeah, it's a good time to buy. Yeah. Phil, with 10 years retired, looking back, what advice would you give someone that's preparing for retirement?
The first thing I think is to be ready. Be ready, because you've been working for 29, 30 years, whatever it is. You have to have something that you're going to do. If your idea is like, unfortunately, some of the guys, is to sit back and drink beer 24/7, or I was down at a friend's house in North Carolina, and one of the guys from 146th Street, he had been retired way before me. And all he could talk about is the different kinds of weed he smokes. Like, that's not a retirement.
You want to what you want to do. The ultimate goal for retirement, and what I tell everybody, however many years you put on this job to work, how many years you should get back in retirement.
Exactly.
If you get authority 32 years, you should get 32 years of pension. If you did
29 years and 2 months, if I fade away, don't feel bad for me, because that's what I gave them and I got it back.
My goal in life,
right.
My wife laughs at me, is to live to 87 years old. Because if I live to 87 years old, I would have worked 32 years, and Lord knows, May 12, 2038, I'm out. That's my 55th birthday, 2038. And my goal is to get the same 32 years I gave this authority, I want back. So
that's right.
Like you said,
that's right.
It's not about drinking again, high. Yeah, I get it. But we worked for a pension. So if we don't get what we worked for, then what's the purpose of doing what we do?
Yeah.
What's the purpose?
That's a good way to put it. What about you, James? What advice would you have, you're 3 years retired. What advice would you give to someone planning to retire in the near future?
If you're planning to retire, like Phil said, make sure you have a plan. See, that's very important. You have to have a plan. I know one gentleman who retired on a whim. He just got tired, and he told me that was the worst decision he ever made, because he didn't have a plan. You know, it's like, my plan was to travel all over the place, but COVID came along, so that shot that plan to shit. But I'm doing things around the house, and I'm doing little road trips.
Right.
So I'm still getting out there, but I'm just not getting out there the way I wanted to. But I did have a plan. Stay as healthy as you can.
That's important.
Live as long as you can after you retire, because the longer you live, the deeper your hand is going to be in MTA's pocket.
Right.
Because it doesn't take that long for you to get your money out that you contributed that you contributed, and after that, you're taking their money, and you want to take their money as long as you possibly can.
Health
So,
is the important thing.
Very important. You
That's
want
right.
you want a long time to keep those checks coming in. John, you don't have to share what your plan was, but did you have a plan approaching retirement?
Yeah. I mean, I knew what I wanted to make sure that I really didn't have any debt. That's one thing.
That's a
I
good
want to
thing.
go into retirement without owing much money.
Mhm.
And I knew eventually I would want to keep busy and pick up a job and just do something part time.
Right.
And which I'm doing now.
Okay, cool.
So I feel comfortable what I'm doing. But also, I mean, when Sean was telling you about the for the pension where you can have X amount and your spouse get it. What I know the union and I heard a lot of guys say, I went out and got a term life insurance policy.
Right.
I got it before I retired. I'm paying a lot. I'm paying $1,200-$1,300 a year for a $500,000 policy.
Wow.
So for me to pay that extra money, not to get that money every month, I said, no way. I went out, I got like I said, a term life policy for 30 years. I'll be good. It's good until I'm 82.
Okay, good.
And by that time, 82 don't really matter, but I just figured for 30, instead of, he's saying some guys are getting $500, $600, $700 less a month from their pension.
Mm-hmm.
Now for me, I worked all those years. I want every penny that I'm entitled to. So that's why I went out and did that on my own, on the side.
I agree to that.
Yeah.
So it's better when you get it young because it's cheaper, obviously, and hopefully you're in good health and your rate won't be that bad. So that's a big thing which I did because like I said, I worked all those years for it. I want to keep every penny that I can.
You don't want to give any back to the authorities. You don't have to. So, fellas, listen. I thank you guys. I want to wrap it up. It's getting kind of late. I know Sean got to be to work at 3:30 in the morning.
Well, I wake up at 3:30. I'll be there.
Wake up at 3:30. That's that transit lifestyle. I like to talk to people about. Like we work very odd hours.
Yeah, I really miss those days, Sean. Oh God, I really miss it.
So look, thank you all for joining me, John.
Listen,
Phil.
hey Q.
Uh-huh.
I just got one thing for all the folks out there who got a boatload of time who don't want to retire. If you guys all want to donate me 1 month of your service time, I'll retire for you. No.
And imagine if that was possible.
Oh man!
Imagine if that was possible. Sean, let's set up another show so we could do something about explaining the disability because, like as you said, it sounded like it was really intricate.
It's a lot more involved with that one.
Right. We'll talk about it another day.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Get some explanation. But again, James, thanks for taking time out of your evening. Phil, thanks for taking time out of John, Sean, see you guys on the road. The rest of you guys, enjoy your retirement and thank you for joining this broadcast. I really
Thursday, I want my apparel.
Hey, my pleasure.
MTV Thursday.
Take care, guys. Have a good night. All right. Gotcha. All right. Bye. Take care.
All right. See you guys later.
Okay.